The Bible is full of extraordinary miracles, some well-known, and others that often go unnoticed. One of those lesser-known stories is tucked away in the book of 2 Kings. It's a short story, just a few verses long, but it carries a big message about God's care for even the smallest details of our lives. This is the story of the floating axe head. The prophet Elisha was leading a growing group of disciples, often called the company of prophets. These were men who dedicated their lives to learning about God, following His word, and serving His people. But as their numbers grew, they faced a simple, practical problem. The place where they lived and met was too small. So they came to Elisha with a suggestion. Let's go down to the Jordan River. Each of us can cut some wood and build a bigger place to live. Elisha agreed and even went with them. It was a practical project, a community effort, with everyone pitching in to help. As the men worked by the river, chopping down trees, something unexpected happened. One of the men was swinging his axe when the iron head of the tool flew off the handle and landed in the river. Immediately, he cried out in distress, "Oh no, my lord! It was borrowed!" In ancient times, iron was incredibly valuable. Tools like an axe were expensive and not easy to replace. Losing one, especially a borrowed one, was a serious problem. It meant debt, shame, and hardship for the man who had lost it. To us, it might sound like a small thing compared to other Bible miracles, like the parting of the Red Sea or the healing of the sick. But to that man, in that moment, it was a crisis. Elisha, the prophet, didn't dismiss the man's worry. He didn't say, "It's just an axe head." Instead, he asked a simple question. Where did it fall? The man showed him the spot in the water. Then Elisha did something unusual. He cut a stick, threw it into the river at the very place the axe head had sunk, and in that moment, the iron floated to the surface. The man reached out his hand and picked it up. What was lost was found. What seemed impossible had been restored. It's a short story, only 7 verses, but it's filled with meaning. What can we learn from the miracle of the floating axe head? First, we see that God cares about the details of our lives. This wasn't a matter of life or death. It wasn't a battle or a plague or a nation in crisis. It was one man, worried about a borrowed tool. Yet God intervened. That tells us something important. Nothing is too small for God. If it matters to us, it matters to Him. Second, it shows us the value of honesty and humility. The man didn't hide what had happened. He cried out immediately and admitted that the axe wasn't even his. He was vulnerable and honest about his mistake, and because of that, he saw God's provision. Third, it reminds us of God's power to reverse the impossible. Iron doesn't float, it sinks. But in this story, God overruled nature itself to meet a simple need. Sometimes in our lives, we face problems that feel impossible. The floating axe head is a reminder that God is not limited by our circumstances. And finally, it teaches us about community. The prophets were working together, building together, and supporting one another. When one man faced a crisis, Elisha, and by extension, God, stepped in to help. We are not meant to carry our burdens alone. The floating axe head may not be the most famous miracle in the Bible, but it carries a profound truth. God is not only the God of grand events and sweeping history, He is also the God of the small moments, the everyday struggles, the personal worries that keep us up at night. Just as He cared about a lost axe head, He cares about you, your needs, your challenges, your fears. So the next time you face something that feels too small to pray about, remember this story. Remember that God listens. Remember that He sees. And remember that He has the power to bring hope and restoration, even in the details of life. This is the story of the floating axe head. A simple moment, a powerful miracle, and a lasting reminder of God's care for His people. 2 Kings 6:1-7.